Today we're talking about everyone's favorite subject, money. So it's no freaking shock to anyone that 2020 sucked for just about everyone, and yeah, it sucked. I don't really have anything else to add to that. And unfortunately, many people lost their jobs due to COVID. So this year, especially, people were looking for supplemental income sources to offset their lost income. And today I'm here to share with you some sources of income that I personally have used, or I know other developers have used, in order to just get a little bit extra money to help us all throughout this hard time. Before we start, I kind of just want to state that some of the sources of income I'm going to discuss in this video are a little bit harder to achieve than others. So I'm going to introduce these topics to you in order of most achievable to maybe a little bit harder to achieve, or they'll take longer. And I also want to say that the sources of income that worked for me might be a little bit harder for other people to implement themselves, just like some sources of income for other people are harder for me to attain. So take these with a grain of salt. These are really just meant to be ideas, some of which you might not even have thought of as sources of income, but it really all depends on your skill set. And so, yeah, this is really just meant as an idea video. Let's start by discussing the two sources of income that you can implement on the side, aside of your day job. These are not meant to be like day job style income. These are supplemental incomes. But there are two different types that I look at, and I'm not sure if these are the technical terms. These are what I refer to them as, but you know. So the first is going to be passive income, and passive income is, in my eyes, income that you receive passively over the course of your career, or over the course of several months or years or whatever it may be. So one example could be a course where you make royalties every month. That's passive income. You've made the content once and you're just reaping the benefits of that for the foreseeable future. The second type of income is what I like to call static income, where maybe you were contracted to write a blog post and it was a one-time payment. That's going to be a static payment. It's still income, but you're not going to be receiving monthly stipends. Before I dive into the different income streams, I'm going to give you a rundown of my passive income sources. I have 9 income sources, one of which is my day job, but the other 8 are all side projects that I have either created in the past or I'm currently still working on. My first ever side project income was actually from my blog. I started on Medium years ago, and I actually have written an ebook on how to blog, and I detail all of my analytics and income streams from that as well. So of course that is one of my sources of income. But blogging is like the easiest way to create extra income on the side. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But that was really my first introduction to making money on my side projects. Just as a note, my first paycheck was probably like $5. I really didn't make very much, but hey, it's income, it counts. After I had a blog for a little while, I was contacted by Egghead.io to create courses for them on their platform. So that was really my first true introduction to paid content. It was great. I loved it. I still work with the Egghead team in a different way, which I'll talk about later, but yeah, they really gave me a chance. After I started working with Egghead, I branched out into conferences. Now, I also want to state that I had a pretty large social media following by the point I was asked to speak at conferences. I only ever spoke at one conference that I had applied to. It was my first conference ever, but all of the others I was directly asked to speak at. So conferences are a great way to make money. I'll talk about that again later. But for me, it was basically handed to me. So I kind of want to just put that out there as a disclaimer that the subsequent sources of income I'm about to tell you in terms of my personal history were presented to me as an opportunity based off of social media following and also the backlog of work that I had already previously produced. After I started speaking at conferences, I joined JS Party as a panelist, which is a paid position, and they live stream. Yeah, I guess they live stream every Thursday, and we talk about JavaScript and the web. And I also started a podcast with a few other women. It's called the Ladybug Podcast, and I'll get into all this stuff later. I'm just kind of telling you my history at this point in time. But yeah, podcasting was kind of my next step. After I created or joined the podcasts, I branched out into courses. So I got to work with LinkedIn Learning, and I've created 2 courses with them so far. I created one on writing a technical resume, and I've just created one, 15 JavaScript challenges that's going to be released hopefully soon. It's going to be really fun. I also got to work with Front-End Masters. I created a Design Systems with Storybook and React course for Front-End Masters, and I'm also working on a CSS Foundations course for them, which will hopefully premiere early next year. After my courses, I branched out into the world of ebooks. I had no idea how to publish an ebook, but I somehow wrote and published myself an ebook in 30 days. And I have a whole blog post on that if you want to see how I did that, because that did exceptionally well. Yeah, I think I made $40,000 in 1 month from this ebook, and it allowed me to pay off all of my medical debt that I had hanging over my head for years and years. So that was really wonderful. And I highly encourage you to go check out that blog post if you want to learn more about how I made an exorbitant amount of money off of a book. I was also contracted by Stack Overflow and Honeypot to write technical blogs for them, and so that was a really fun little project. Yeah, and as I previously mentioned, ebooks. I already mentioned this. Why am I talking about it again? I wrote 2 ebooks. They still bring in money. That's the best part about ebooks. You write it once, you make money. It's kind of low overhead. Okay, so let's jump right in and talk about income stream number 1, which I previously mentioned as being blogging. I think blogging is the lowest overhead income stream that you could possibly, you can get started today, and it's great. I first joined Medium, and I know there's a lot of shit flying around about why Medium sucks and the paywall and all this stuff, but let's be real, it's a way to make money, and I wish that we would stop shitting all over it as a platform. It allows content creators to make money off of their work. I still have all my blogs on Medium. I always cross-post on my personal blog, which I always think you should have a personal blog. But if you're trying to gain followers and readership and all of these other things, join a blogging platform. I have my blogs posted on my personal blog, which is compiled.blog. I also cross-post on Medium and the dev community, and I just link the canonical URL. But I really wish as a community, we would stop crapping all over Medium. It's not perfect. There are many things that we can fix, but it is a really great way to make money. That being said, my first few paychecks, for the first several months, years, etc., I really wasn't making a lot. The highest paycheck I ever received was $230 in 1 month. And if you want to learn more about how to make money off blogging, I wrote an entire book about it. I can link it in the description box. But it'll walk you through how you can make money off of a WordPress blog with ad revenue and affiliate links, and how you can monetize your personal blog with web monetization. So I'm not going to go too deep into the world of blogging right now. Maybe that's a topic for another video. Let me know if that's something you'd like to see, because I'm happy to discuss that more in length. But blogging is it's a great source of income. Just make sure that your expectations are adjusted. You're not gonna come in normally. You wouldn't come in on day 1 and be making hundreds of thousands of dollars. I still haven't made an exorbitant amount of money off of blogging. It does take a while. It kind of depends on your readership, but if you're on Medium specifically, applying to different publications is a really great way to gain readers and followers. Highly recommend doing that. It's how I got my start, but just set your expectations. I think the largest income streams I've seen come from blogging, English. They were done on WordPress. They use affiliate links, affiliate marketing, they do sponsored posts, they do ad revenue, and you'll see these a lot on recipe blogs where you just get tons of Google ads flying all over the place. But to be fair, they're making thousands and thousands of dollars a month. So if you're interested in that, you can do it. I personally don't do blogging for the money. I just do it for fun. And it so happens to bring in a small amount of money each month, and I'm cool with that. But also being asked to write blogs for companies like Stack Overflow and like Honeypot.io are really great ways to make a decent amount of money. I think the most I made off of a contracted blog post was about $500, I want to say. Of course, one-time payment. But again, all of these things are negotiable, and that's a whole other video, how to negotiate, how do you know the rates to be charging on these things. But that being said, while contracted blog posts are great, it's kind of hard to get into it. I mean, a lot of these companies want people with influence, and I freaking hate that word, but it's true. Companies really would like to, in general, work with people who have social media followings, so that it's essentially free marketing for them. Honestly, one of the quickest ways to make good amounts of money off of side projects is by having a social media following. So that kind of sucks, honestly. I mean, that stuff takes time. I was definitely an exception to the rule in terms of social media following. I also have another blog post where I discuss how I gained 65,000 followers in 1 year on Twitter. It was all organic growth, never paid for anything. Let me know if that's something you'd like to know more about, how to grow your social media presence. But if you're looking to get into contracted blog posts, growing your social media following is a really great way to get noticed by some of these companies. So income stream number 2 is going to be ebooks. Ebooks are something that I had never even considered, to be honest, until when did I don't even remember when I wrote my first one. I think it was in April or May. It was earlier this year. And I'd never written an ebook, but my genius self decided to promote an ebook that I hadn't written and then write it in 1 month. And it was very stressful, and I kind of don't recommend doing that, especially because I did a light theme and a dark theme, and it just don't recommend. It was too much stress. But with the pandemic this year, we've seen a huge uptick in the number of self-published ebooks happening. And honestly, ebooks are such a good way to make money, especially if you're writing about something that is an industry need right now. So I wrote about the technical interview process. I also wrote about blogging, so I have 2 ebooks that I've self-published now. Yeah, I definitely have a blog post on this. I'll just link all this stuff in the description. Like if I mention something, you can find it down there. I think the ebooks are incredible. There's little to no overhead to get started. My biggest tip with ebooks, if you're going to create an ebook, you have to have a mailing list. I'll talk about this more at the end. Your mailing list is actually going to be more valuable than your actual content that you're producing, because at that point you've got a curated list of people who are currently interested or previously were interested in your products, and it allows you to market to them in the future. There are tons of free online platforms. I know Canva.com is one platform you can use to design your ebook. That I would say is probably better for smaller ebooks, but if you're looking for a larger ebook creation tool, I use the Mac Pages app, to be honest. I don't think I'd recommend it because some of my consumers had issues reading it, especially on Kindle. But there's a platform called Bookwrite that you can use to create an online ebook. I haven't used it personally. I know people that have, and it looks like a great product. So the next time I do self-publish an ebook, I'll probably check that out. And then in terms of how do you actually sell these things, I mean, there are tons of platforms for selling. I personally use PayHip right now. Is that how you say it? PayHip? Yeah, I use PayHip right now. I really like it. I love their UI. LeanPub is another online publishing platform that you can use. You can actually even create your ebook in LeanPub, but to be honest, I found that UI to be extremely confusing and I didn't like it, so I left that platform. There is another platform that's quite popular with people. I'm not even going to mention it because I don't agree with their ethics as a company and I refuse to promote or work with them. I've discussed them in the past. You may or may not know who I'm talking about, but in any case, I'm definitely promoting PayHip. I really like them. Podia is another one that's really good, but in all honesty, they can get a little bit expensive. If you're like creating content full-time, courses or ebooks, highly recommend Podia. I think it's worth an investment. But if you're just looking for like a one-off ebook publishing site, I would definitely recommend PayHip. So number 3, in terms of sources of income, it's going to be YouTube. I just started my YouTube channel, not because I care about the money. I actually don't have monetization set up, and I honestly don't know how to set it up. Yeah, if you're looking to create content that can make money, I think YouTube is a great place to do it, especially for development content. I think we forget that a lot of people go to YouTube to learn development skills. So if you have development skills to offer, yeah, look at Level Up Tutorials, what Scott Tolinsky has been doing on YouTube. I've been watching him for years. Same with Brad Traversy. You know, it takes time to build a platform, absolutely. But if you're looking to generate income on the side, I think this is great. So I'm gonna link a few of my favorite tech YouTubers below. Check out my really good friend, Sydney Buckner. She makes awesome videos. She's also one of our newest co-hosts for our podcast. She is amazing when it comes to tips for YouTube and how to get started on YouTube. So I'll link her down below. So number 4, you might not have thought about, and I honestly don't use this as a stream of income, but you definitely can, and you can definitely make money off of it. And that is going to be GitHub sponsorships. I do not create enough things on GitHub to be valuable to anyone. Actually, my GitHub is mostly just like a graveyard of sad side projects that I bought a domain for and never used. But hey, if you're creating really great open source work, you can get sponsorships on GitHub, and it's an awesome place to create income, especially if you're an open source. I mean, often open source is a thankless area, isn't it? We don't thank our open source maintainers or creators at all, for the most part. So if you can go sponsor someone, do it. And also if you create open source software, set up your sponsorships. If you're creating something meaningful for the community, there are many people who would love to support you. My number 5 income stream is going to be courses, online courses. Now, these are a little bit further down the list because they're definitely more labor intensive. Holy heck, they take a lot longer to make. And honestly, it can be really hard to make money off these unless you're partnering with a larger platform like I do with LinkedIn and with Friend and Masters. But what I like to do, and this is a huge tip, if you're getting into content creation and you want to maximize your time, is to monetize the same content in more than one way. So I like to write a blog post on it, monetize my blog post, turn that into a conference talk, monetize my conference talk, turn that into a course or an ebook and monetize that. I mean, you're essentially creating the content once and reaping the benefits of it in 4 different ways. Yes, there's going to be some additional work that needs to be done, right? If you're creating a course, you're going to have videos for the most part, depending upon the style of course that you're doing. But holy heck, that's the best tip I've ever had, is create your content once and build it on different platforms so that you can have multiple streams of revenue. You can also create courses, well, on YouTube, but you can self-publish courses through platforms like Thinkific, I don't know how to say it. I haven't used them. It looks like a really cool platform. Another one is Kajabi. I'm probably saying these incorrectly, but I literally just typed in a Google search for how to create and self-publish an online course, and those were literally the top 2 hits. So you could probably do the same. The downside of creating courses, like I said, it's quite labor intensive. Also, if people are paying for a course, they expect a high fidelity of polish. So you're gonna have to edit, you're gonna have to ensure everything is up to date, you're gonna have to update it when new releases come out. So that is definitely a negative. But I think courses actually can be the most proficient, is that the right word? I'm gonna use it. It can be the most proficient or revenue generating stream of income if you do it right. The next source of income I want to talk about are podcasts. Everyone and their mother created a podcast this year, which I think is awesome. Can we talk about this for a second? I don't know why there's so much hate around creating ebooks or creating podcasts. Like, you really are going to complain that the market is oversaturated. People are having fun. It doesn't affect you. Who cares? But also, you have more content to digest. Like, I don't get why this is so controversial. Who cares if people start a podcast? If it makes them happy, You don't have to listen to it. Also, if you don't like something that someone's producing, you don't have to tell them. Just like leave the page. It's not that hard. That was a little bit of a rant, but my point was, if someone is creating free content and you don't like it, it's much nicer for you to just leave than to leave a nasty comment. But this is not a video all about internet etiquette. Maybe I should make one. That would actually be quite entertaining. But yeah, podcasts. So everyone created a podcast this year, which I think is awesome. Podcasts can be a little bit hard, especially to make money off of. Actually, we invested a lot of money up front in our podcast. We paid for custom branding, custom music. We paid for an editor. We had to invest in really nice microphone equipment, which if you want to know what microphone, mic arm, preamp, that I use, you can go, I have a blog post on my blog all about my tech setup. But podcasts can be expensive, but you can also do it more affordably. There is a microphone called the Blue Yeti, which is what I started out with. I highly recommend it. It's a great intro microphone, but it costs about like $90 US, I think. And this is great. And all you need is like QuickTime audio or another audio recording device on your computer, and you should be good to go. You can edit yourself. You can publish yourself. We personally use Pinecast to distribute our podcast to, Spotify, to Apple Podcasts, to Google, whatever the Google version of podcasting is. So you can do it affordably, but if you're looking to make money, the best way to make money off of a podcast is to invest in expensive ass everything. People like to see polished. They like intro music. They like clean editing. They like clear audio. My other biggest tip for that is to post consistently. So we publish every Monday, and having that consistency is a big deal. People love consistency, and people love having a backlog of content that they can go listen to. So we were all really lucky. I mean, we all had social media we all had a social media presence before we started our podcast, and we received sponsorship requests quite quickly. We actually waited several episodes into season 1 to accept any sponsorships because we wanted to scrape our analytics in order to determine how much we should be charging per episode or per revenue slot. So yeah, we use sponsorships in ours, ad revenue. So we'll do 2 pre-roll slots. So we have our intro, we run our pre-roll ads, and then we have a mid-roll slot as well. The mid-roll is generally less money because of course, when people start listening, that's going to be when you have their attention. We're very transparent about our sponsorship fees. They're all on our website, which I love. We actually took that idea from Scott Talinsky and Wes Boss from Syntax FM. I think that's great. But yeah, sponsorships can be pretty hard to attain, especially like if you don't have a following or listenership. It's hard to make money off of it. So just be aware of that. It can take a lot of time. Sometimes you might not ever make money off of it, and that's okay as well. But get creative with the ways that you want to make money off of it. Maybe your podcast gets invited to speak at a conference and you can ask for a speaker fee. Or maybe, your sponsorships can include a tweet every week just to thank them. Like, these are all things that you can do to increase profitability of a sponsorship. The next stream of income I want to discuss is conferences. I don't know if people realize you can get paid for conferences. I don't remember the first time I got paid for a conference. Actually, I think it was Microsoft Diversity Day. I'm pretty sure that was my first paid conference. I was supposed to speak at a conference in Germany this year. Obviously that got canceled, but that would have been my first paid speaking gig. The way that I see this is, at the very least, first of all, holy crap, if you are making money off of speakers' talks as a conference, if you are a for-profit conference, you better be paying your speakers. At the very least, you should be paying for their travel and their accommodation. Nothing makes me more angry than conferences who make money off of speakers, especially marginalized speakers in the tech industry, and they don't pay them. That to me is absurd. Now, community conferences are different, right? Community conferences don't necessarily have a budget, and so I would never ask a community conference for a speaker fee. That's me personally. You might want to, and that's okay. I think the first fee I ever asked for, I asked for $1,000 because, let me explain why. That seems like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. It is a lot of money. When I speak at conferences, I take vacation days. So my vacation is spent working, and that means I don't get to see my family as often or travel as often. So in my eyes, if I'm not super keen on doing a conference, but they really, really want me to speak, I'll generally ask for a speaker fee because I'm giving up my personal vacation time to do this. And I'm also giving up, weeknights to create a talk. So take from that what you will. Yeah, I asked for $1,000 because honestly, I didn't think that they were gonna pay it. And here's your situation. If you're not super keen on doing it for several reasons, you can ask for a pretty high speaking fee. If they come back and say, no, thank you, you don't have to do it. It's not a big deal. And if they come back and say, okay, we'll pay it, well, then at that point you can decide if the opportunity cost of a paycheck is worth it to you. So I personally don't think it ever hurts. If a conference can't give you a speaker fee, most of the time they'll be somewhat willing to compromise on travel. Now, I also want to state, I am very privileged in the sense that I have a US passport. So that allows me to travel to many different countries and speak without needing a visa. Or if I need a visa, it's generally quite easy for me to get. There are amazing speakers from all over the world who cannot get visas to speak at these conferences. So if you are a conference and you are curating these speakers from all over the world, which you should be, that should be a thing that you're doing, please help them get a visa. And so if you're a conference speaker and you are a for-profit conference, please help your speakers with travel and accommodation. Please help them get visas, and please pay them. So one last source of income I want to just briefly mention is freelancing. My really good friend Kelly Vaughn, also my podcast co-host, is super into freelancing. She has a book called Start Freelancing Today, which I highly recommend. I read the whole thing. I wrote the intro. It's fabulous. Freelancing is really great, and you don't have to have 25 years in an industry to freelance. You can go on Fiverr.com and simply create websites for people in need, like community people who are looking to hire someone, or people who need help fixing their tech bugs, their development bugs. That is a thing that people will pay for. They might not pay a ton of money. It kind of depends on how many clients you've had in the past and your backlog of work, but it is a way to make money. You can make a lot of money freelancing. So I highly encourage you to check out Kelly's book if you're interested, and check out Fiverr as well. So those are the main primary income streams that I would recommend you check out if you're interested in creating some supplemental income. But I do have a couple of final tips I would like to leave you with today. So the first thing I mentioned before when I was talking about ebooks is to have an email list. Again, your email list is super, super valuable. I wish I'd started this sooner. I used MailChimp when I was starting out, and I highly recommend them. I think they are an amazing tool. I think it's free to start. Highly recommend them. When you've leveled up to a certain point, like when you have a certain number of 1,000 followers or subscribers, I highly recommend ConvertKit. I think it's much more powerful. You can do automations and email sequencing and all of these things. It is more expensive. It's definitely more expensive, but if you are looking to build a huge business out of your side work, highly recommend checking out ConvertKit. Tip 2 is to look into the tax implications of being a freelancer or like having on these side project income streams. This is especially important for me because as an American living abroad, I've lived in 3 countries this year, which means I am paying taxes in 3 countries. And often your side projects are not going to give you tax forms, or they're not going to withhold taxes. That's basically that's for certain. Especially if you're selling ebook content. I had mentioned PayHip before for selling ebooks. They take care of the VAT tax for the EU. That's really important. Make sure you're looking at that if you're selling digital content. You need to understand whether your VAT is accounted for in the platform that you're selling on, or if you personally need to account for that. It can be a little bit tricky. I'd recommend hiring a professional accountant to do your taxes, or at least to give you some financial advice. I'm gonna end up doing it this year as well. If you're generating significant income, make sure that you're setting a certain amount aside every month for taxes. I'm trying to save about 50% right now of every paycheck that I get just for taxes alone, because honestly, I might have to pay double taxes on it in the US. It kind of depends the threshold that you earn within. But don't just count taxes, pay your taxes. Yeah, that's a big piece of advice. And my last tip is just to recognize your small wins. It can take months, years, I don't know what comes after years, decades, hopefully not decades, but it can take a long time to see real income from your side projects. And it can be pretty disheartening, but recognize your small wins. I think we take that for granted. In this day and age especially, we are so prone to instant gratification, and we forget that it takes time. For most everyone, it takes time. Yes, there are some outliers. I personally am an outlier, and I'm going to recognize that, but what I want to do with that is share my knowledge with all of you. I just want to be really clear that the things that I do are going to take a different amount of time than it will take for you to do, because everyone's path is different, right? If you don't have a social media following, it's gonna be a little bit harder to get to work with large companies like Stack Overflow to write blogs. It doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means it's gonna take a little bit longer to get recognized. So, these are just meant to be ideas, but please recognize your small wins. They're hugely important. And I think my biggest tip especially is to stop focusing on the number of followers that you have or the amount of money that you're making, and just focus on creating awesome content. I always find that if you build it, they'll come. And for me, that's held true. And that's honestly one of the reasons I think my followings grew so quickly, is that I was more focused on producing content consistently and high quality content at that than I was on just gaining followers. I really hope that y'all enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making it, but also it kind of makes me nervous to talk about money. I don't know why people get so upset about money. I don't see anything wrong with monetizing your work. I don't know why so many people expect things to be free all the time. While I do create paid content, I'm also quite empathetic, and if people can't afford it, I will do everything I can to either give them a huge discount or to just give it to them for free. Specifically with my blog posts, I'll cross-post them for free on my own website. So, you can go support me on Medium if you want, but you can also ingest most of my content for free. Can't obviously do that with everything with like LinkedIn and with Front-End Masters, but anything that I am personally producing myself, I like to give back to people. But yeah, in general, I don't see any problem with monetizing your content, and I really hope that we stop making people feel bad for monetizing their work. Work is work. People don't always work for fun, right? If you're working for fun, that's a freaking privilege. Let's just acknowledge that for a second. Most people work because they have families to feed and bills to pay. So, if you're looking to get into supplemental income and some fun side projects that make money, I hope that some of these ideas maybe sparked your interest. And if you have any questions, feel free to DM me. I try to get back to everyone. My DMs are an absolute mess, but if there's anything you have questions about, I will read through the comments and answer as many as I can. And with that, I hope y'all have a great day.